This wasn't just a fight. It was a moment when audacity tried to test whether you could strike at the very idea of a legend and not break your hand on its granite. When Vinnie Pazienza stepped in against Roberto Durán on June 25, 1994, there was more at stake than a decision on the scorecards or another line on a record. It was a challenge to time itself. Because Pazienza embodied stubborn comeback and hunger for recognition, while Durán was the symbol of an era, a man who had long become the benchmark for toughness, skill, and raw boxing ferocity. And from the opening seconds, it was clear this would not be easy for either man. Pazienza immediately imposed a high tempo, moving, throwing in combinations, working both levels, trying to deny Durán any chance to settle into a rhythm, while Durán operated as if time had no authority over him, never rushing, never wasting motion, waiting, reading, adjusting, and in every movement you could feel the experience of countless battles against elite opposition. And every punch he threw carried a weight that demanded respect even at a distance. Pazienza understood that his path lay in volume and activity. He took space, forced Durán to work more than he wanted, and round by round things began to tilt in his favor. Yet the tension never disappeared for a second, because Durán remained dangerous at all times. He could lose exchanges but suddenly explode with a perfectly timed counter. And in those moments, it became obvious why Manos de Piedra was not just a nickname but a statement of fact. Every clean shot from him felt like a reminder that even legends in their twilight do not become safe. As the fight progressed, Vinnie Pazienza's advantage became more visible. He was winning through pace, through constant engagement, never switching off, combining, moving, controlling distance, and refusing to let Durán turn the bout into a slow, grinding chess match where experience might take over. But every round still carried an edge because Roberto Durán kept searching for openings, picking moments, landing hard shots, and at times connecting in a way that made it feel like everything could flip in an instant. And in those flashes of old power, the fight gained an extra layer, turning into more than a contest, but a conversation between generations. By the championship rounds, Pazienza looked more assured, sensing he was ahead, becoming slightly more measured, avoiding reckless exchanges without retreating into passivity, continuing to work, maintaining distance, breaking up Durán's advances before they could develop. While Durán, despite his age and the accumulating fatigue, kept pressing forward. His attempts to turn the fight around were stubborn and dangerous, but he no longer had the time or freshness to truly change the overall direction. When the final bell rang, there was no sense of accident, only the feeling that one fighter had done everything required to win, while the other had done everything to remind everyone who he was and still is. And the unanimous decision went to Pazienza. Yet the true value of the fight was not just in the raised hand, but in the fact that he had been tested by a legend and came through not just as a winner, but as a fighter who proved he could withstand the pressure of a name, of experience, of power, and not dissolve under it. While for Durán, it became another chapter in a great career where even in the role of a veteran, he remained a man no one could afford to relax against for even a second. Because his boxing was never about age, but about a character that time simply could not erase. After their first fight, the paths of Vinnie Pazienza and Roberto Durán didn't split abruptly, but rather drifted apart like two lines moving in different directions within the same story about endurance, character, and the price fighters pay for their names. For Pazienza, the victory wasn't an ending, but a confirmation that his comeback story was not a myth, but something real he had to keep fighting for. He solidified his status as a fighter capable of competing at a high level, continued stepping into the ring, collecting wins, facing setbacks along the way, yet most importantly, preserving the image of a man who had already gone through the impossible once, and therefore wasn't afraid to risk it again. His career after that fight was far from perfectly smooth, but it remained full, active, and driven by a constant need to prove his place in the sport. And even as time began to take its toll, his name was already secured in boxing history as a symbol of stubborn resilience, a man who refused to accept the limits imposed on him. For Durán, the fight became another chapter in a long, almost mythological career, where even defeats didn't diminish greatness, but instead added new shades to it. Roberto Durán continued to fight afterward, showing that his presence alone was still an event.